Thank you, Marco. That was an excellent presentation. Until we get people starting to ask questions, maybe I could give a start. So I'm going to play the role of a moderator here more now. And I think Stephen and Marco are experts in this field who has done a lot of work. And I think Stephen also can bring value addition in terms of understanding and comparing to the context of Victoria, Australia. Can I ask a question from you, Stephen, to start with?
Certainly, go for it, Mayuri.
Alrighty. So I think probably the last slide, it kind of gave us the insight about not just sort of achieving sort of operational efficiency and upcycling in the system, but also running it in a way that it is cost effective, probably passing a lower service fee for the residents. So when you kind of thinking of when you're thinking of balancing the service fee and to what extent do price signals play a role in that? I mean, you could also, if you like, maybe perhaps share what you think about what we have here in Australia and Victoria as well. And if there are possible things to share about Contarina as you have analyzed. So Stephen has, I shared with you, has done a lot of analysis on the Contarina case study and has written a fantastic blog, which I shared with you over the chat. I suggest that you have a read through it leisurely. But yeah, quick question for you, Stephen, is what's the role of price signals in making that cost effectiveness in the system?
Well, one thing that Marco didn't mention that when I visited in 2023, I was impressed by was the very low number of actual collections that are made from households. I think, Marco, you said on average it's 3 collections across all of the households that participate. And whilst the collection's available much more frequently, I think it was 26 times a year the bin can be presented for collection, but in practice people are averaging 3. And the bins are being collected when they're full. And I think this is an incentive from pricing as you throw, that if people are paying each time the bin's collected, they make sure the bin is full. And from an operational point of view, it eliminates a lot of unnecessary cost in collecting bins that people have presented because it's Monday and it's bin day, or the sort of behaviour you see here that adds cost into the service unnecessarily. I don't know, Mark, if you want to comment on things that you've done that have reduced the cost, not because you're offering less service, but because it's just a more efficient, less wasteful way of doing things.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. Yes, more efficient, and also being, as I said before, public, so we don't need to make a profit, the profits we have are reinvested in local projects for the citizens. So this is also important. And yes, we are able to, so having different waste collection days, we are able to plan all the operational costs in advance. We are really looking forward also the artificial intelligence that is developing fast also in our world, because we already have a very developed system that give us the opportunity to keep under control every single truck that are on the road every single day. But just try to imagine that if we know in advance if a bin is on the road or not. So this is a huge impact that we could have in terms of time and also, let's say, pollution, because of course we are on the road with almost 500 trucks a day, and this is the next chapter we are developing, because that would be amazing if we know in advance if a bin is exposed or not, and if the operator knows if he has to drive onto that street or not, because there are bins or there are no bins. So this is and in terms of operational costs, this is an advantage also for the citizens, of course.
Amazing. We have a few more questions coming through the chat. So Mark is asking, I think probably this was answered, Mark. If not, you could let us know with the last slides of the presentation. How many euros per capita or even per household per year does this cost the average household?
Yeah,
is that the 222 figure, Marco?
Yeah, and this is maybe I forgot to tell you that it is a family of three. So the 223 is for a family of three person. That not doesn't mean that a single pays 70 euros, because our fees are developed in order to support families with more people. So it's a little bit complicated, but if a family of six do not pay, if we compare the 70 euros per person, they do not pay per six 306, but less. So it is a little bit complicated, a calculation, but we try to support the families with more people inside. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. We have another question from Shwetank. I think it also relates to something I wanted to ask, probably could be a question for you as well, Stephen. How has your waste management structure influenced consumer buying habits and manufacturer product packaging to reduce the amount of waste created? So I'll combine with the question I wanted to ask, which is like in a lot of these things, there's influence or tapping into the side of consumption and disposal, which means influencing behavior of consumption through the information and how you manage waste. So how do you see like the way of Contarina's working and the system help through that?
I bring you an example that happens 5 or 6 years ago. When the guys from Zero Waste Europe, so we hosted a kickoff meeting for a European project at our headquarters, and a guy from Zero Waste Europe called me and said, Marco, I have to make some interviews to the citizens in Italy, Malta, and in other countries involved in the project, and learn what is good and what is bad about the waste collection in your territory and other territories. I say, look, but I mean, we are at 90%. I don't think that citizens are complaining a lot. Yeah, but I need to do it. So I called my dad, that he was involved in adult, I don't know the English word, but the university for adults, things like this, where people goes for the some lessons. And so he came with a group of 15 people, 75, 80 years old. And at a certain point, a lady said, if I notice that the brand of biscuits I usually buy, the packaging is not recyclable, I change brand. 80 years old lady. And so this is the result of what we made during the last 20, 25 years of education and communication to the citizens.
Yeah. Would you have something to add, Stephen?
Only that, and these are observations of Europeans and of being in Europe. I've had Italian visitors staying, and they examine every piece of packaging to find out how it can be disassembled and go into the correct collection stream. So I think, this is part of their education, obviously, but there's also a pretty powerful incentive to put waste into a recycling stream rather than residual waste. If you're paying to dispose of the residual waste and you're not paying for those other wastes to be collected. And I think this, and even the diversion of food waste, I think if people were encouraged to separate their food on the basis that they would pay more for the weight of it in their residual waste bin, I think that it definitely works. I could see that in other places I visited in Europe, in 2018 that people will leave packaging at the supermarket if they can, or they'll buy products, as Marco said, without packaging if it cannot be recycled.
Yeah. Cool. We have a few more questions coming. Kaving is asking, what percentage of household is covered by Contarina out of Veneto? Veneto.
Sorry, what is the percentage?
What's the percentage of household? Kaving, if you're there, would you mind elaborating a bit more on this, what you're asking?
Because I saw that the numbers of the are different. Like Contarina is at 90% of conversion, but at the Veneto total number was 76.2. I was just wondering.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So the average, as we are located in the Veneto region, the average for Veneto region is 76.2 of separate collection. So, for example, Veneto region includes Venice as well and so on. So the region is at 76.2, and the country, Italy, is at 65.2.
Does this answer your question, Kavinga?
I was wondering whether it covers whether like the total of Veneto is covered by Contarina, or what kind of percentage?
No. Yeah. No. We are only covering 49. That was in the first slide.
Out of
so
79,
a part of the promise of Treviso, 49 municipalities, not the entire region. No.
Thank you.
Alrighty, we have another question from Mark, which is a bit more philosophical question as well. If so many organizations consider product design as the essential starting point to achieve genuine circular economy, how does this system engage directly with the brands and product manufacturers? So it's probably the role of design in a circular economy. How do you tap into that in a system like this? And I would combine it with another sort of a philosophical question from me. What next? So you have like a heavily optimized system that optimizes and recovers materials from a waste stream. From here, where to?
When I was telling before success and failing stories, I bring you the example of nappies. So 10 years ago, we were contacted by an Italian company that it was part of the Procter & Gamble family, a joint venture between Procter & Gamble and one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in Italy. They learned about Contarina, and they asked Contarina to develop together a project for recycling nappies. As you know, nappies, well, in Italy, we don't have many babies, but of course, in India and Africa and so on, nappies are a huge problem. So we worked for 10 years in developing this project to build together with this company the first plant to recycle nappy. As you know that nappies are basically made of three different components. That is plastic, super absorbent polymer, that is the gel that absorbs the liquids, and cellulose. So this is a plant that separated these three elements. We worked for a lot of years, and then for several reasons, including also the start of war in Ukraine and the price of energy that went so high, this plant was not, let's say, profitable. Also, we were not the owners. So the owners decided to close it after 1 year. Just keep in mind that if we take the residual waste bin of Contarina, more or less the 20-25% of what is inside is made of absorbent products for elderly people, from kids, from ladies, and so on. Now we have received a fund from the recovery fund after the coronavirus from the Italian government. We are building a new one with new technologies. So the answer is yes, we work with manufacturers and brands to develop new technologies and new ways to, for example, start recycling nappies. We are very happy to develop a new plant that will give us the opportunity to increase that 90% of separate collection we have.
Okay, beautiful. Would you have anything to add, Stephen? I mean, it's quite interesting the way that you kind of co-design. So challenges in recycling passed on to the manufacturers, and they're informed on how to design differently. So that's a great piece of information to have in going towards a circular economy. Do you have anything to add, Stephen, there on possibilities for Contarina to go from here?
Well, not so much in relation to Contarina, but I know many councils have a lot of information about the waste that they're collecting that would potentially be useful. I think if there was a easy way for it to be fed back into the people that are manufacturing packaging or other products that are ending up in the municipal waste stream, because composite packaging, there's so many opportunities really, and that knowledge often resides with councils and the people that are dealing with the waste. And I mean, the other waste, and I actually had a question for Marco about dumped rubbish, but a lot of the waste that there is no recovery stream for the waste, or there is no end use for it, or it's expensive, things like tyres, are being increasingly turning up in the dumped rubbish that councils are collecting. And every time the cost of taking materials to a transfer station goes up, councils complain about more dump rubbish. So I think there is a link, and councils see, particularly from dump rubbish, the things that people are having trouble finding a way of getting rid of them legally and safely. But my question for Marco was about has Contarina noticed, or have the 49 member councils noticed any changes in the amount of dumped rubbish that's been collected as you move to a pay-as-you-throw system?
So the answer is yes, because, for example, when the pay-as-you-throw was introduced in Treviso for the first few months, we had, even if we did a lot of information event and radio spots and so on, there is always people not interested. And so for the first few months, we faced a big amount of dumping, of legal dumping on the streets, because they didn't understood how the system works. But this lasts for, let's say, 1 month. At the moment, in our territory, we have 200 grams per person of illegal dumping a year.
200 grams.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, I saw a smile on your face.
Well, I know the last council I worked at, Marco, we picked up 2,000 or 3,000 tonnes of dumped rubbish for a population half the size of yours. So I think, that's remarkable. And I think it speaks to how effectively your services are working for people, that they're able to dispose of waste without resorting to dumping.
Yeah. Excellent. So I've one last question, because I'm aware that Marco has to, it's 7 a.m. for you, Marco, and I guess you to run to catch a train. Last question from Emma Tonkin, and I'll take probably 2 minutes to finish after that. For households that have collection on average 3 times a year, do they have access to, do they access the mobile drop-offs instead, or do they just have very little waste?
Yeah, this is the example of Stephen was bringing. So Emma, having so a production of 40 kilograms, I'm talking about the residual waste and non-recyclable waste. the production per a year per inhabitant is 40 kilograms. Okay, so just keep in mind a family of 3 or 4 people, we are talking about 40, 80, 120, 160 kilograms. Having the beans of 120 liters bin means, and the pay-as-you-throw is related to the number of emptying of your residual waste bin. I didn't went in deep with this. So we provided to all the families a minimum amount of emptying of the residual waste bin based on the household members. So a family of 3, we automatically calculate 4 emptyings a year of the gray bin. After this, they pay a lot, but this is 4 times a year. Means that even if the truck pass every 15 days, every 2 weeks to collect the residual waste, the bin, you put the bin outside on the road only when it's full. Otherwise, you pay, even if it's a quarter full, you pay because it's emptied. So people are used to put the bin only when it's full, and the average is 3 or 4 times a year of emptying the residual waste bin.
Yeah. Alrighty. I guess that answers the question. There's 3 more questions coming. Marco, would you be happy for me to share the email address with some of the participants? I mean, all of the participants. Some of them I think might be keen to write to you, and I could sort of coordinate the balance questions that came in. So quickly sharing the screen and finishing the webinar. So this is like the 9th webinar we are holding, and we have the next one line up at this stage. I hope you can see my screen. Yeah. Yeah. So, sorry, 8th webinar, and then the next one is the 9th one that we are lining up, which will be happening on the 17th of April. We are going to a completely different topic on ESG, with the landscape of reporting evolving quite significantly in the last year or so. How to get your businesses ready. So this was focused more on the public sector and circular economy aspects. That one is more for corporates and businesses. And with that, I would like to say thank you and special thanks to Marco and Stephen. Stephen has been the person who's behind sort of connecting Marco with us, as well as sharing a lot of analysis and information about Contarina case study, and was quite keen on bringing this information to Australia and to help other councils learn, public sector organizations learn. So thank you for that. And Marco for joining us from Italy very early in the morning. And I'm conscious that you have to leave very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I would appreciate if you could share your feedback with us, which would help us to sort of improve the webinar series with getting more interesting content, and also in bringing new types of resource people in, talking about new different topics. So thank you very much for your participation as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Marco. Thanks, Mayuri.
Bye. Thank you.
See you, everyone.